Hello everyone, welcome to a new class in design patterns, and in this opportunity we're going to be talking about the change of responsibility pattern. Now this is going to be the first behavioral pattern that we are studying in this module. So let's start there first of all. So a behavioral design pattern is going to be that type of pattern that is in charge of designing or deciding the behavior of a particular program. So we can define as a big scale how the program is going to respond to certain inputs, depending, regardless of where it comes, whether it comes from the user or from a database or from an external API. Now let's take a look at the pattern itself. Now we're going to try to achieve loose coupling in software design, particularly when it comes to different ways of solving a problem. So suppose you have a request that comes into your program, and that request can be fulfilled in different ways. Well, what this pattern proposes is that you change those different ways of fulfilling the request, and then each one of them will try to solve the problem one at a time. If the first one doesn't manage to fix the problem or to fulfill the request, then the request will be passed on to the next element in the chain, and so on until the request has been fulfilled. Now, a good example of this would be an ATM machine. So suppose the user requests to get 100 euros from the ATM machine. So in that case, the ATM machine can decide what to do, whether I give you two notes of 50 euros, or I give you 5 notes of 20 euros, or I give you 10 notes of 10 euros. There are different ways of fulfilling this request, and that's what this pattern is going to try to achieve. Now, if the first element in the chain is not able to fulfill the request, or can only fulfill it partially, then the request is passed on to the next element to be fulfilled. And if that one doesn't fulfill it completely or only does it partially, then you will pass on the request to the next element until the request is completely fulfilled. Now, I'll give you some code of Moodle for you to try to give this a go. I gave you an interface, and you have to create 3 classes that are going to implement this interface. These 3 classes should be cache 10 dispenser, cache 20 dispenser, and cache 50 dispenser. I've also given you a currency class, and I've given you an ATM chain test. So let's take a look at that code that I have put up on Moodle for you. So we can see the ATM chain test is just a class with a main method and a constructor. And you can see that there new instances of the dispensers class have been created. Of course, this is giving an error because those are the classes that you need to create. Now, the next thing I'm doing is I'm chaining these elements as if they were a linked list. So I'm saying that for the C1, the next element in the chain is going to be C2, and for C2, the next element in the chain is going to be C3. Then the next thing I have is a while loop. The while loop is just reading input from the user. In this case, So in this case, we're reading from the user a particular input, and we are throwing an error, or not throwing an error, we're just putting a system that out the println in there saying that if the amount that you give me is not a multiple of 10, then I won't be able to fulfill this request at all. Now, if the number that you're giving me is a multiple of 10, then I will pass to the first element in the chain the amount that I want to dispense. So let's take a look at the interface for each one of the links. So I have a set next link that is telling you something about the attributes that each one of the links must have, and you have a method called dispense. Now, the currency is just literally just a number, so I'm defining an integer amount. the constructor gets that amount as a parameter, and I have a get amount method. So give yourself a good 10 or 15 minutes and create the 3 classes and try to see if you can figure it out how you can implement the chain of responsibility pattern to fulfill the request of dispensing the money. Now, from a dispensing the money point of view, all you need to do is a print statement. So fulfilling the request is, well, if I am a 50 euro note dispenser, I can say there here are 3 or 4 notes of 50 euro, depending on the amount that the user has requested. So give that a go, and I'll see you in the next video where we're going to solve this.